What's up everyone, this is Tranquil Toys and I'm back with another video, and this time I'm taking a look at the Mattel MOTU Masterverse Many Faces figure, or Many Faces figure from He-Man. So as always, I'll be taking a look at the figure, the details, the design, the articulation, and be giving my thoughts throughout the video. Then I'll do some comparisons and head swaps later. So the first thing I want to say is that the design of the figure looks very cool. It's not 100% like the way the character appeared in the Filmation cartoon, but I think the figure looks really cool the way that they designed it for this figure. So I think the figure came out really cool. One thing I don't really like is his boots with the big knee pads or shin guards. Regardless of that, I still think the overall look of the figure is really nice. And in terms of articulation, it's a little bit different than the regular Masterverse figures. So the biggest difference is the upper torso articulation. So you can actually turn the upper torso articulation at full 360, which is nice, and you get a little bit more range than normal side to side tilt. There's not really a head articulation. The only thing you can do is swivel the heads like that, but that's a part of the feature, so I'm not really going to count that as articulation. So pretty much there's no neck or head articulation. So you have the bicep swivel, you have the double elbows. Also want to point out, I like the metal on the back of the arm. So the elbows work, the wrists, of course, swivel and hinge up and down. One thing I do also want to point out is that the hands are kind of small and it just looks kind of goofy. So I'm not sure why they didn't give him the bigger hands like they should have. And swivel at the lower torso. One thing I also want to point out that the waist piece does not line up 100% with the lower torso. So as you can see right there, it kind of hangs over. So that is kind of weird that they designed it that way. I guess they're just reusing parts and not really thinking about how it's going to line up. And the legs, he brings his leg up that far up and back a tiny bit, and they go out very far. So that's as far as you can take it, and that's a pretty good amount. And then swivel at the thigh and double knees also work very well. He also has a shin swivel or a boot swivel, and the ankles also feel a lot better than some of the previous releases. So that's another good improvement that they're making on the figures. So overall, I'm very happy with the articulation and the presentation of the figure. Some people thought this line was going to die, but it doesn't seem that way to me. It seems like they're improving and they have a lot more years ahead of them to release figures. There's a lot more characters that I'd like to see in this line, so hopefully they'll continue to improve, make better figures, and that'll improve the overall health of the line. You know, more people will buy because they'll see the quality increase. And so I look forward to the future of this line because of that. Also, the detailing on the figure is also very nice. Of course, you have the sculpt work on parts like the boots. Also, this part right here, it's not just painted on, it's actually sculpted into the figure. And the musculature under that, and also some of the line work on here, it's not just painted, that's sculpted. They could have made the boots and some of these metal pieces up here a little bit shinier, maybe a different kind of plastic, but that's obviously something that they would do for a higher end line. But for this price range, I think it's about 25 bucks. You know, they're not going to go all out in that regards, but what they did do, I did like the way they did it. And one thing else I want to point out is these pipes right here are actually separate pieces, so they actually do move a little bit, and you can see that they're separate from the actual torso piece. So I like the way they did that. It gives it a little bit more detail, but that does give it a potential for breakage. I would have liked for a wash between the lines here and the pipes here. I might do that myself, but besides that, everything looks really cool. And for accessories, the figure comes with two fists, which again are undersized, which is unfortunate. It comes with a blaster or laser. This also plays into the gimmick, which I'll get into in a second. And three more faceplates, which obviously plays into the gimmick of the figure, which I'll get into right now. So if you're not familiar with this character, he does have the ability to change his face, and depending on the face that he chooses, gives him a different power. They didn't really demonstrate that here with this figure, which is a little unfortunate. Ideally, this figure should have been a deluxe release, and they would have had all the different effects for all his different kinds of powers, depending on the face that he has, but they just didn't do that, which is kind of unfortunate. But you can pretty much replicate that if you have, you know, other accessories from other figures throughout various lines. You can recreate some of the different powers that he showed in the cartoon, depending on the face he had. So So the first face that he has on now is the skull face. I don't know what power he has with this face, but this is probably one of my favorites. I like the way that that looks. He looks a little bit like a Scooby-Doo villain, but I don't mind that. I actually think that's kind of cool. And then you can just change it by spinning the top here. And I saw some reviews where they said that it's not possible to change the face by swiveling that. I don't know, maybe your fingers are too fat or something, but it is possible to change the face. The second one here is his monster face. That gives him increased strength, and he's actually evil when he has this face on. And here's his regular face, or his good guy face. Now in the cartoon, he started out as a bad guy, and later in the episode, after he learned his lesson, he became a good guy and started helping He-Man. In my opinion, I think this character works better as kind of having like a multiple personality disorder. That would be really interesting if they showed that in the cartoon. I don't know if he's like that in the comics or some other MOTU media, but in my opinion, you know, in my collection, he's pretty much like a multiple personality person, so he's not good or bad. He's a little bit of both depending on the situation that he's in. So the way that you change the faces, just take the helmet or the can off, and that exposes the different faces, and then you just have to kind of dig your nail in between the face and the rest of the head. And that's how you take out the face, and you can see the two holes in there where you port the two pegs that are on each of the faces. And then in addition to being able to take out the faces, you can also take off that right there, and you can pretty much put any head that you want. It's not going to stay there, but I'll show you what it's going to look like. So you can pretty much just do stuff like that. Just use sticky tack and put that on there. So now that's where the extra faces come in. So you have a robot face, his actor face, and then another neutral face, I guess. I'm not sure if that face showed up in the original cartoon, and neither did this one. I think this one did. That gave him electric powers, and I guess this is the face he uses for acting. It also kind of looks like Tony Stark or something. Sometimes the faces are a little bit difficult to remove from this suitcase thing, which the suitcase doesn't close. This stress line down the corner of this suitcase thing was already there when I took it out of the package. So, and it doesn't close. If you close it, it will break. I don't know why they couldn't have just put two swivel joints or something there, so you can actually open and close it. So that's another unfortunate thing about this figure. And once you have all the faces out, you just put them on, and you just pop it back on. You have to put it back the right way. You got to line up the hole with the peg so that it goes on. Then you put the helmet back on, and then you can also use his blaster accessory. It has a hole on the end of it, and you can also change the faces like that, and then you can switch the faces like that. But you don't have to do that. You can just use your fingers. And there's what he looks like holding the blaster, and there's no blast effect to put into the blaster, so it's another accessory that's kind of missing from the set. And then you can store the suitcase on his back. There's two pegs right there, two holes on his back, and so that goes on like that. And again, it just kind of sticks out because you can't close it, so that confuses me even more of why they didn't just make it closable without, you know, breaking it. So I might just go ahead and cut that, and then maybe put some tape on it so it's able to open and close better. For me, I'm just going to display it standing there in front of him, or holding it. He can also hold it. There's a handle there, so you can also do that too. There's not really anywhere to store his gun, but there is this part sticking out, and you can also put that on his back, so I think that looks pretty cool. Then he can also hold the mask as well. I did put a little bit of tack. There's not enough plastic for him to hold it at the chin of the mask, but he can hold it in other places on the mask. So you can do like a pose like this where he's hiding his true self, his true skeleton face self. So on top of all that, you can also put different heads on his head under the bucket. So here's the Beast Kingdom Jack Skellington head on there. I had to use some tack, so that's what that looks like. And then you can put the bucket over that, and it kind of works, not totally, but that does show you the potential for the head swaps with this. And I'll go ahead and show you a couple more. So here's He-Man's head under the bucket, and this actually works very well. That's pretty cool. I'll definitely be taking some pictures with that. And there's a Marvel Legends Punisher head in there, so that also fits pretty well. I'm not sure why you'd want to do this, but it doesn't look that bad. Marvel Legends Red Skull, This actually looks pretty cool. So since the head doesn't swivel, one thing that you could do, so you see where the helmet tabs into, you could actually remove all this plastic around with the Dremel, so you can make the bucket able to swivel all around that area. I don't know if I'm going to do that though. It seems like a bit too much work, but honestly I don't mind not being able to swivel the head, but we'll see. And like I mentioned earlier, you can put different effects on him to show his different abilities. So here he has the robot face, and he's got the lightning powers like he did in the cartoon. So that looks pretty cool. Here's another display option. This is a Mace from Gridiron Studios. He's got the monster face, so he's a little bit more savage or barbaric when he's got the monster face on. So I think that also looks pretty cool. So the last thing I'll show before I end this review, some size comparisons from the same line and from other lines. So here he is with the Masterverse He-Man. So He-Man is wider than him. They're pretty much the same height though. Here he is next to a female Masterverse figure. Here's a sorceress, and I did do some customization to this figure. I cut her dress down. I just never showed it off yet because I wanted to clean it up. I just haven't got around to doing it. And then I also thought about finishing her cape by adding a larger orange piece of fabric here and cutting it to the shape of feathers, which I didn't do a good job on. It looks pretty bad. I'm probably going to end up just buying an orange cape, putting it on her, and then calling it done, because this didn't turn out very well, and I'm not very good with fabric to make that look good. Here's the Marvel Legends Iron Man from the animated series, and here's the Volverse Desert Rat figure, and here's a Kotobukiya model kit, and here's a Figma. And also here's something else you can do. Pretty much any figure that has alternate faceplates, you can put that on this figure. So you just take off one of the faceplates he comes with, put a little tack on it like that, and you grab the faceplate from any figure you want, and I'm just going to use this Figma. So you put that on the tack, and then if it doesn't fit, you can put the bucket on first and then put the face, and then you get something that looks like this that is pretty terrifying. So I've been having a lot of fun with this figure. It poses good, it feels good in the hand, and pretty much the stuff I just showed you. So overall, very happy with this release. Looking forward to the stuff that they got coming next, like the Slush Head. I have that on pre-order. I also have Grizzlor, which I'll take a look at in the next review. Every other day there's going to be a review, so you guys should subscribe so you don't miss any of those. And of course, as always, let me know your thoughts about this review, or if you have any questions about anything, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.